Greetings. Is this thing on? I believe so. You never really know when you're quite live from this platform, but I believe it's happening now. So I just want to share up front that we're going to take a tour of the wonderful website Constellations of Words. This is something I'm doing for the students in my Grounding the Fixed Stars into Your Astrology month-long deep dive workshop. It's still open. Would love to have you in. If you come in now, you'll find that there's 2 classes waiting for you. We're just about to have our second study groups tomorrow, Wednesday. 2 days from now, Wednesday, May 3rd. Happy May Day, by the way. May, a month named for Maya, one of the Pleiades, who we see up here. The Pleiades are our focus in this month in this study group. So let me close this thing down. Oh, I guess I'll just say geminibrett.com/stars if you would like to join us. Okay, I want to record this thing. Greetings, friends. I want to take you on a tour of this amazing website, constellationsofwords.com. It's actually just looking for a donate button here and cannot find it, and also cannot find contact information or any biographical information about the author of this site. I've recently found out who she is, but apparently she wishes to remain anonymous, at least in this particular work, so that's not for me to say. Anyway, I'm very grateful for this website that she has created that helps us review much of what the ancients have had to say from many traditions, actually, in many ages, in regards to the so-called fixed stars and constellations. So here at constellationsofwords.com, you will see first just these different menu options at the top, some words about what the site is, so check that out. See also introduction to the fixed stars, so that's interesting to hear. William Lilly quotes, we're going to find a lot of, here's Vivian Robson, much more modern than a book from 1923 that he wrote, which I find to be kind of harsh. From the esoteric realms, here's Manly P. Hall from Secret Teachings of All Ages. Back in the day, some of the alchemical information, at least transmitted through Manly P. Hall. Anyway, so check that out. Oh, actually, here is Anne's name. So Anne Wright is the woman responsible for putting this incredible site together. So thanks to Anne Wright. All right, so let's see at the top. So you see that there's the home page, lists of constellations, lists of stars, and stars with special meanings. But look at how stars with special meanings is classified according to these different topics, like stars that are associated with marriage and domestic conditions, right? And then we could click here on Porama and find out why. Or click here on Virgo and find other stars in that constellation. I'm wondering what planet contact with Porama means. Porama's in the year 2000 at 10 degrees Libra. So I don't know. Anyway, let's go to a list of constellations. So if there's a star or cluster of stars like the Pleiades that you want to research and you happen to know where in the constellations it lives, in the case of the Pleiades, they reside in constellational Taurus. So I can click on Taurus here and find this list of where the stars live. Fixed stars in the Pleiades on the shoulder of the bowl, which is interesting. So there's leading with the Pleiades here. Now, importantly, you're going to see these longitudes, okay? Due to the precession of the equinoxes, or really axial precession, or the procession of the stars through the tropical zodiac, The longitudes, which just you will know as zodiac degree, shift over time. So here Ann Wright's shown us the longitudes for the year 1900 and also the longitudes for the year 2000. Precession is about 72 years for 1 degree of movement, so it's a very slow thing. And importantly, stars that don't live right on the ecliptic plane will have different precessional rates, and you really don't have to trip on that. But if you're born in 1950, you're probably just going to take the average of these two placements from 28 Taurus to 29.5 Taurus, so somewhere in between 28 and 3/4 Taurus. I didn't do that right, but you get the point, right? So precession's quite slow, and basically just find one of these that's closest to your date and add or subtract a little bit. So these are the so-called seven sisters of the Pleiades here, and their longitudes in 1900 and 2000. Their declinations in the year of 2000, their latitude in 2000. Declination being the distance either north, which is indicated by positive like this, or south of the celestial equator. And so here we see that, Maya, for example, is 24.5 or 24 degrees north of the celestial equator. Latitude being a celestial body's angular distance north or south of the ecliptic. So we see that Maya is 4 degrees north of the ecliptic plane. So close to the ecliptic, but in a sign, a tropical sign, Taurus, and late Taurus at that, so pretty much Gemini, which is rather north of Earth's celestial equator. If that language doesn't make sense, come take my class. All right. All right, so right ascension is a measurement along the celestial equator, just as celestial longitude is a measurement along the ecliptic. So we know that as zodiac degrees. The right ascension is an amazing astronomical thing to learn, probably not essential to your fixed star research right now. I mean, 95% of the way that astrologers work with fixed stars is really based upon longitude or zodiac degrees that the stars project to. And speaking of, we can, I believe, find this list of stars, which is listed by longitude. Right, so just here at the home page, or this menu's like there, regardless of where you visit in the site, which is very nice. I can click list of stars, and now the stars are listed by longitudes. And as you can see, it's kind of listed by the longitudes in the year 2000. Because if it was listed by 1900, probably we would start with Deneb Kaitos, Difta, the tail of the sea monster, rather than Curb here, because you're starting with Aries, as many astrologers and many astrological lists, and actually many astronomical lists do, because 0 degrees tropical Aries is the beginning for the measurements of celestial longitude and right ascension alike, the northern crossing of the celestial equator by the ecliptic. Right, so, this is a very convenient way if you have a star, I don't know, my Mars when I was born was at 1.5 degrees tropical Cancer. And that was in 1975. So I'll start with this 2000 list, and then I just need to subtract a little bit. So I'm just going to scroll down here until we get to Cancer. And here we go, 1 degrees and 12 minutes Cancer, Yuldun, never heard of you, okay? Propus, certainly I have, which is the foot of the mortal twin Castor, okay? So, Yuldun, I'm going to find out about that star. And we find that it's a star in Ursa Minor. Interesting, Furcard, which is how I typically know that star. Oh no, that's one of the stars in like the front of the cup of the Little Dipper in the Small Bear, Furcard. So it looks like Yuldun here also has this name, Furcard. Makes me wonder what Furcard means, and gosh, am I pronouncing that just horribly? I have no idea, so please forgive me if I am. So this is a place I'll go in my own time to read a little bit about Yuldun. because it projects to the degrees of the zodiac where the planet Mars was when I was born. Now, I was born with Mars out of bounds north very slightly, but certainly not this far north. This is the North Pole star, right? Polaris. Very, 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 very far from the ecliptic plane. So I'm drawing a line a long way down. Let me just scroll down here. Typically, we would see, let me click on Yulduin again. Okay, yeah, I was just below it. We get to see here that in 2000 it had a longitude of 1 degrees 12 arc minutes of tropical Cancer. The declination in 2000, 87 degrees, 86.5 degrees north of the celestial equator. The North Pole is 90 degrees north, okay? So, I mean, this is basically at the North Celestial Pole. Of course it is. It's the star next to Polaris in the tail of the Little Dipper Small Bear. It has a latitude of 70 degrees north, okay? That's 70 degrees away from the ecliptic plane. So I recommend when you're doing fixed star research, if you want to connect your planets to stars in the sky, certainly not to ignore projection, like these perpendicular lines that we draw. Let me just show you how that works. I was kind of looking at something else in Stellarium, so let me set this up in a different way. We'll put the ground beneath our feet. Gonna take that away. All right, let me bring in the meridian. Here's the ecliptic. So this is the path of the sun. Okay, and you can see it's like the archer and the sea goat and the water bearer and the fishes and the rams, right? The bull. I have Aldebaran, eye of the bull, 10 degrees tropical Gemini, highlighted here for just a little research project I was just doing. Well, the bull lives south. Sorry, the eye of the bull, Aldebaran, lives about, you can see here, latitude 5.5 degrees south of the ecliptic. Okay, well, that's pretty close. Like the sun's going to travel and get within 5.5 degrees in space of Aldebaran each year when it's here at the 10th degree of tropical Gemini in our day and age. That's the longitude of Aldebaran. You see here 70. Well, that's measured from 0 degrees tropical Aries, which again is here where the ecliptic crosses the celestial equator from the south to the north. Okay, and from Aries, of course, we go 30 degrees, 1530 to 0 Taurus, 1530 to 0 Gemini, and then another 10 to get to Aldebaran in our day and age, right? So 70 is just a measurement from 0 Aries in celestial longitude. In constellations of words, Anne Rice has already converted that celestial longitude to the tropical zodiac, right? So 70 means 10 tropical Taurus. 30 plus 30 plus 10 is 70, right? Aries plus Taurus plus 10, 10 degrees Gemini. All right, so let's look in the northern side of the sky, and we're going to find here Yulduin, right? So I just met this star's name, and you can see that it's like on this line that projects to the ecliptic all the way down here. That's that 70 degrees of celestial latitude, okay? So just be a little careful, or at least understand when you're working with projections, you're drawing lines sometimes very far from the ecliptic, from stars or other celestial bodies, like far, far away. You know, when I was born, Mars was here, not way up there. So I might be a little bit more interested. Let me move this in time, so wrong way, so I can get a better view of stars like this, or this, or this, Propus, right? Or Orion's Club, like stars that are much closer to the ecliptic. In fact, as long as I'm doing that, I'm just going to dial in my birth information. I was born in Boston, Massachusetts on October... Can I get a clock? Thank you. October 24th, 1975 at 7:39 p.m. Now you know everything about me. All right, when I was born, Mars was down beneath the ground in the first house, or the second, depending on how you prefer to slice the thing. And so let me go here. Apparently I don't have planets on the screen right now. There we go. Here's Mars. All right. And so again, like when I look at Mars by zodiac degrees, 1.5 degrees tropical Cancer in my chart, and I go through the list and find a star, and it's like, oh, it's me, right? Yuldoon, way up here. Again, we want to be careful with that because in that case, we're projecting all the way down here. Okay. And again, I mean, it's interesting. I am not in any regard suggesting we throw that out. When we're projecting lines to the ecliptic, to the path of the sun, and for the most part, the path of the planets, because our solar system is relatively flat, though every planet has its own orbital path, it's not irrelevant to project to the ecliptic. That's what we do in astrology. That's the one circumference of your chart wheel. It's the plane of the Earth Sun, the matter spirit relationship. It's a big deal. I like to call it the one ring that rules them all and in the light binds them because it's the path of the sun. But when we're drawing lines from stars 70 degrees away, we might imagine that Mars is going to take on more of the influence of stars close by. So pay attention to latitude as well, the distance north or south of the ecliptic Yuldoon, 70 degrees north latitude, where stars like this, Propus, Tejat, these are like feet of the mortal twin. This is Castor, his immortal brother Polydeuces is on the eastern side of the two. What about this star here? Unnamed in Stellarium astronomy software. We also get like stars from the Club of Orion, also unnamed here, but maybe not in the tradition. So back to constellations of words. I'm going to go back to a list of stars and find my way back to 1.5 degrees Cancer, at least in the year 2000. And see here, like, so 29, almost Cancer in the year 2000, Menkalinan, which we find up in Auriga. Okay, so a celestial latitude of 21.5 degrees, positive meaning north side, okay? So let me zoom out. We're looking up here now. Oops. There. Menkalinan. This is a star whose name I always want to remember when I'm outside because Capella is like a star of great focus for me. But here's Menkalinan. Okay, again, if we project down to the ecliptic plane, you can see that star gets pretty close to where Mars was when I was born, right? So perhaps in this way of projection in the same longitudes, the stars like influencing Mars for me. Interestingly, you can see this kind of line of Auriga, the charioteer here, kind of runs along a longitude. So there's also the star Mahasim. So we didn't see that on the list. I'm still wondering about Orion's club stars. And since I don't see those on the list, let me go back. Yeah, Mahasim's not here. We see Betelgeuse, okay, which is a shoulder of Orion. And maybe that's kind of out of orb now. People usually like 1 or 2 degrees orb maximum for fixed star conjunctions, quote unquote, or I'll say longitudinal projections to be much more astronomically accurate. There's a lot of stars here that I'm actually finding are not listed. So I'm wondering about these stars of Orion's club. Before I go looking for them, let me just click on this one, Propus. Okay. Well, Propus is here, this star, this foot of the twins. And so this star didn't make the list. Since it's in the twins' foot, we might imagine that the ancients had a very similar thing to say as they did about Propus or Tejat Prior, right? So Prior meaning kind of like the first star of Castor's foot in ecliptic or longitudinal order. All right, so scroll down here and I can read all about this star. Astrological influences of the constellation Gemini, right? So not just the foot of the mortal twin, but all of the twins. And we get Manilius, right? We're going way back in time to hear from a Hellenistic astrologer. Oh, we get a little bit from Richard Hinckley Allen's wonderful star names, their lore and meaning, published, as you can see, in 1889. The star Propus portended lives of eminence to all born under its influence. We could only hope. Anyway, Alhina with Tegat posterior and the star Propus entered Cancer 1621 and 1755 AD, respectively. Each of these dates within a year or two was significant. The rise of European thought and literature from the Renaissance onward. That's an interesting statement. We get this from The Living Stars by Dr. Eric Morse. And I don't have that book. Somebody's going shopping. Anyways, so from that statement, maybe we hear this, the ability to express ideas in reasonable and acceptable ways, which win because of their manifest intelligence. Now you can imagine if that star, if this is true, if that star is connected to Mercury, it might be a little bit easier to get that through than Mars, right? I mean, maybe not. Mars can be a very expressive thing, right? Mars not necessarily reasonable or acceptable, generally speaking, but of course Mars is all of these things too. Anyway, so I saw in Stellarium, and Stellarium, for me, it's like kind of the first place to go to learn about your connections, if you will. It takes some time to learn, but you know what? I have lots of videos. I have playlists on YouTube of Stellarium astronomy software for astrologers. Stellarium is an open source, that means free software that works for both Mac and PC. It's an amazing thing, and it's really highly recommended because now, besides just looking at lists of numbers, like I have an image for where the moon was when I was born, and I can see that the moon is so closely aligned to, here it says Tianguan, but in the astrological tradition, probably more will be familiar with this southern horn of the bull as El Heka. The northern horn is El Nath, a star that's shared with Auriga, the charioteer. Let's bring the planets back on. I've got them supersized, by the way, so that's more like moon size. But I have a very near moon El Heka conjunction. I mean, even if I look from where I was born, though they were beneath the ground, so I wouldn't see anything. I just wanted to see where my moon was with parallax considerations. It actually gets a little further from the star. As far as what the ancients had to say about that horn of the bull, maybe that's something I should prefer. Anyway, you can see in this kind of Moon-Mars proximity, there's something about Orion's club where much of my, I was about to say astrological, and I think that word applies, but really more kind of like, cosmotheological focus has been, because in our day and age, very importantly, the solstice point, 0 Cancer, is on the hand of the high man, to use the ancient prophetic term from the Celtic tradition, and the cross of the Milky Way. That's the galactic plane there. With the ecliptic, the plane of our solar system, is right there in all times. In our day and age, the North Pole of Earth is leaning there too. It's a big deal, right? So, I mean, perhaps that Moon and Mars were kind of centering in on that point when I was born has me very focused on it. Perhaps. And sometimes I say very moony things about it, and especially Gemini moon things about it. Sometimes I say very Marsy things about it. All right. So I'm interested in these stars in Orion's club. And so here in Constellations of Words, what I'm going to do is go to the list of constellations, and then we'll scroll down and find Orion. and contents, clues to the meaning of the celestial feature, the fixed stars in this constellation, history of the constellations. I want to look at all those things. It's going to take forever. I'm not going to do that with you right now. I will say this is cool. Read what mythological writers have written on Orion on this Theoi project webpage. I'm going to open that in another tab. Theoi is an amazing website that really brings us so much of the mythical research. Big ups to these characters over here. And so you can find your way around there. I'm kind of on a Pleiades kick right now, so I can search Pleiades if I can spell it. I'm learning too. And that looks like it just did a general search. I guess I want, instead of just hitting return as I did, click search theoi.com. Huh? No, I guess that is. So yeah, these are all at Theoi, right? So Maya, well, happens to be the Pleiadian for whom the month of May is named. We've just turned there. Happy Beltane, May 1st, May Day. Time to dance around that maypole. It's raining for the first time in a while outside my window. I live on May Road. All right. So anyway, this is a wonderful place to do mythic research. I mean, amazing. And this constellationsofwords.com, such an amazing place to do stars research. And I love that they link there to Theoi, because much of these star delineations in ancient times, and perhaps modern as well, will be linked to the starry stories. And we would love to hear starry stories from many lands. While constellationsofwords.com has its focus on kind of the Greco-Roman mythos, it's not limited there. But I really encourage you to open your research into the myths of many lands and the myths of many ages if you want to learn the starry stories that will help you connect your nativity to these stars. All right, so let's go scroll down, and again we get the fixed stars in this constellation. So I'm gonna click there, and I thought that would have brought me right down to a list. Explore the etymology and symbolism of the constellations. It brought me to the home page. I'm gonna try that again. Yeah, that just seems to be kind of a broken link. So instead I'm going to scroll down. It tends to be at the end of the article on the constellation. We'll find this list of the stars. So, I mean, it's kind of weird the way that they're listed. It's actually, I think, set up for the mobile device. And right, whose name I see here again? I don't know why it took me so long to find her name on this website. But she reorganized the site, I don't know, 5 years ago or something. It doesn't play as well on the desktop version anymore. But who am I to complain? What an amazing resource. Thank you, Anne Wright. Osiris and Dionysus compared. That's intriguing. I want to go see that. This website is just amazing. The more you look around, the more you will fall in love with it, as I certainly have years and years ago. I spent a lot of time here. All right, so we can see now stars in this constellation listed according to longitude, right? So Tabit or Pi Orion. In 2000 at 11 Gemini 55. So basically 12 degrees Gemini. Okay. I'm not familiar with that star. I'm certainly familiar with Beta Orionis, which is Rigel or Rigel, the leading foot of Orion. Let me show you that star here. It's beautiful. It's a powerful star. So Rigel, pretty far from the ecliptic, well south of the ecliptic, which you're going to see here as a negative latitude. It's not to say the northern hemisphere is positive and southern negative. That's just the ancient way to indicate north and south, okay? So we have south of the ecliptic as a negative latitude, south of the equator as a negative declination, like this. So Rigel is 8 degrees south of the celestial equator, and 31 degrees south of the ecliptic, right? So we're projecting that star a long way. The stars that we saw, Tabit, probably in Orion's shield. Yeah, got it. So the brightest star of Orion's shield, Tabit. I don't know what language it's even from. I do know I'm probably very much mispronouncing it. But you can see here a longitude of 71.35. So that's 60 plus 11 and a half. Why do I say 60? Because signs are 30 degrees, right? So all of Aries, 30. All of Taurus, another 30 is 60. We get to Gemini. This means 11 and a half Gemini, which is what we see here, right? 1155 in the year 2000. And there's a cool teaching already. Like, I was not born in 2000. I was born in 1975. So at that time, that star would be somewhere between this 10 degrees in a third Gemini and 12 degrees Gemini, and indeed it was. Okay, so look, I can click on that star and learn much more about it. I mean, some of these stars are going to have pages of delineations throughout time, some of them much less so. I mean, we can spend time with just the idea of what is it to be in the shield of Orion. Well, some don't show it as a shield at all, right? So you can see here in this drawing from William Tyler Olcott that it's like maybe a lion's pelt. Hercules had a lion's shield. What I read recently, which is really interesting, is Orion the Hunter, that in the day, like, pelts would often be thrown over the prey to kind of trap them. That's kind of hard to imagine to me, but I'm not much of a hunter. Anyway, so, you know, what is Orion's shield? Here you do see it's kind of a lion also. So that's intriguing. Does that want to enter the mix? All right, well, that star is actually pretty close to my ascendant, which is 10 degrees, well, 9.5 degrees tropical Gemini. I've known about my ascendant's connections to Aldebaran for a long time. In fact, this is the ground when I was born. So Aldebaran has not risen. Why would I call it my rising star? Well, it projects to my ascendant, which is just here, you see, where the ecliptic intersects the eastern horizon. So projection. But if I'm going to call that my rising star, I can't see it. See, when I'm outside and I see the Pleiades just above the horizon, then I know my ascendant is ascending because this is the scene when I was born. So I'm very interested in the stars that are like right on the ground or about to be on the ground or project to the ground, but I also want to kind of, you know, what stars can I see in the sky at any given time? All right. Anyway, the nakshatra of my moon, Mrigadhira, is marked by Mayesa, the stars here at Orion's head. But I really want to know about these stars in Orion's club. And one thing we can see is here's Betelgeuse, the shoulder of Orion. Okay, and Betelgeuse in 75 had a longitude of 88.25. In other words, 28.25 Gemini. So we're going to see Betelgeuse more towards the end of this list of Orion stars. There you go. 28.45 Gemini in the year 2000. 27.21 Gemini in the year 1900. And then we get some stars after that as well, right? So Tau, Pi, oh, how do you say that one? Chi? Anyway, and I think usually she'll show a drawing. Maybe if I click on Betelgeuse. Yeah, you'll often get to drawings like this where they'll show you the Greek letters in one of the systems that the stars are classified by. I'm still not seeing anything up in the club or kind of the hand zone. If I'm over here in Stellarium, I need to change my settings. Oh, information, catalog numbers. Okay, so that's, I think, is it Chi? The XCHI? Anyway, Chi 2 Orion. Okay, so that star is super close to Mars when I was born. Certainly this star at the foot of Castor, of the mortal twin, is even closer. So I see that as 1 gem. Beta 1405. There's so many different ways that the astronomers over time have listed the stars. But then, yeah, also these like Chi 1 and 2 stars at Orion's club which are dim, but I can see them with my naked eye, especially when I visit dark skies. They have something to do about bridging the gap between Moon and Mars for me. I already have Mars in the sign of Cancer, so there's something to that. And that's probably something I want to do, So is this Orion's club, or is it the staff of the true shepherd of Anu, as it was according to the Babylonians, or is it a scepter of Osiris, who we are told kind of incarnated as Orion in the sky after his journey through the Duat, right? I don't want to limit my worldview to only the hunter of the Greco-Roman tradition. But I don't want to avoid that either, because I think there's teachings there. All right, so I think you get the point. This amazing place, constellationsofwords.com, a way that I, just show you kind of by example, using it personally. Let me do one more. I have Venus at 15 degrees tropical Virgo in my nativity, right? And so maybe I happen to know that that lives in the constellation of the Lion in 1975 when I was born, and I do. I mean, I can even here in Stellarium just search for Venus, and it's, oops, no, that was like searching my computer. Some work I've done on Venus. Here we go. Now I'm searching in Stellarium Venus, and that'll bring me right there. And I happen to know that Venus, when I was born, is aligned by longitude to kind of the haunches of the lion, that this star, Chirton, is the closest kind of bright star to where Venus was when I was born. But what if I zoom out and I can see that somewhere here in the kind of center of Hydra, the serpent, getting down to, what is this, like a plumb bob? A lot of southern constellations were brought on in this strange industrial age when cats figured out like this compass had to sail, how to sail far enough. Like down here, I suggest we kind of tune into the teachings of Southern Hemisphere folk. Seems like a good idea, Anyway, Venus, this is 15, this line is 15 degrees tropical Virgo. So I can also just go up here, Cor Corolis, these so-called hunting dogs. So that star is closer than actually I knew. And then, wow, I was just actually studying these two. That's intriguing. And I didn't know my Venus was connected to this double star, Alcor and Mizar. The reason why, as I said before, I've been kind of focusing in on the Pleiades. Many of you know this because you're in the fixed star course. For the first kind of like focused Bohemian magical star of Hermes, in a series of workshops that I'll be presenting this year. Because why learn about every star? Why learn a little bit about every star when you could like learn a lot about, one and then move to the next one and really try to integrate so we can add these things and do some research so we can have some faith and some delineation, Anyway, the 7 stars of the so-called Big Dipper in one of the Vedic transmissions are the 7 rishis, the 7 who survived the great flood with Manu. And then the Pleiades, who live rather far away over here in the back of the bowl. Yeah, some intriguing celestial connections, perhaps. But they are said to be the wives of these 7 sages, right? So the 7 rishis here, the 7 stars of what we in the West typically call the Big Dipper these days. And then the Pleiades, the 7 sisters, or in this case, the 7 wives. Well, there's a story about how maybe they weren't faithful when the sun, or actually Agni, the fire, but likely as the sun who comes through here every year, visited once. This is definitely an astronomical telling. Actually, one of them remained faithful. Anha, I believe is her name, the brightest, which most associate with Alcyone, the Greek name for the brightest of the Pleiades, which interestingly means center. But anyway, and so that star split and went and lived with her husband. And so that's the story of these 2 stars that live so close together. Alcor and Mizar. And so, intriguingly, I'm learning that story. Oh, Virgo Venus, about a purity in a marital contract. That might feel like a stretch to some, but it's speaking to me right now. And I see that when I was born, those two stars had a celestial longitude of 165.21 for Mizar and 165.31. Well, Venus is at 165.05, 165.03.5 according to Stellarium. So that's a really strong connection by longitude, by projection, that actually until right now I was totally unaware of, and amazingly would have had less personal connection to a week ago after studying Kritika, the Vedic term for not only the nakshatra that begins with the Pleiades, the lunar mansion, but the Pleiades themselves, and the story of the rishis and those 7 wives over there. Intriguing. So that's how it is right now. I could have, learned that in this way and then gone to read about those myths, I'm sure. Let's head over and see something about Alcor. Okay, so knowing that Venus was at 15 Virgo, tropical Virgo, when I was born, I might go here at Constellations of Words and click lists of stars, probably look at 2000 since 1975. It's closer to that date than 1900, right? And then just scroll down and find 15 Virgo. And there we go. And Mizar and Alcor, those stars of the Big Dipper that we were just looking at, the stars in the tail of Ursa Major, the big bear. I see, before I go there, I'm just going to look at Koxa here. Zosma, I showed you here in the haunches of the lion, Zosma in Chirtan. I'm actually surprised not to see Chirtan on this list. So I think that's an important thing just to point out. It's not every star is on the list, okay? Denebola is the tail of the lion, 20 Virgo when I was born. Asterion is a star I don't know. What a wonderful name. I was looking at a connection up to Cor Caroli up here, the so-called hunting dogs, right? But it's this star, on the western side, Chara, that's closer to that 15 Virgo projection. And I'm not seeing Chara here, but I'm wondering if maybe its name is Koxa. No, Koxa is a star in the lion. Oh, so Koxa is what I'm calling Chirtan. And oftentimes we'll find other names. Maybe that's Kosha. Koxa, Theta Leo. Okay. Along with Zosma on the hindquarters were Al-Khalil al-Assad, the space between the shoulders of the lion, or the 2 little ribs, or the 2 curt holes penetrating into the interior of the lion. That from Star Names. Interesting. I'm just going to do a search on this page for Chirtan. No, and it doesn't even show up, interestingly. And I want to look here at Star Chirtan. Theta Leonis, formerly named Chirtan. So I'm just wondering where that name, Chirtan or Chort and Koxa. Chirtan is derived from the Arabic for 2 small ribs. And Koxa is Latin for hip. Please pardon my ignorance in regards to Latin and Arabic pronunciations. I'm just reading this about the IAU choosing which star is official. And we get Chirtan, which of course, Stellarium is typically going to reflect the IAU's decisions, depending on which kind of star lore I have elected in that wonderful software. Okay, cool. Well, now I know that that star wasn't missing on this list. It was just written in a different name. And I get to read something about, oh, the Arabic name is Chort, which is the rib. So anyway, on my own time, I will go read all about this star. Marked a nakshatra, so I can learn more about Purva nakshatra. All right, cool. Anyway, as you can see, an amazing website, highly recommended. I'm going to go back to that list. And I see that Cor Coroli is in later Virgo, but I'm wondering about that other star. Maybe it's Asterion. Right, so Mizar and Alcor and the Big Dipper. I'm wondering about Asterion. Yeah, so this is this other star in the Hounds, Chara. Okay, so here's Chara, and I guess this one's Cor Coroli, which from my understanding is the name of the constellation itself. There should be an option here in Stellarium, yeah. Constellation CVN. I don't know that. Canis Venatici. Oh, my language ignorance shines brightly. Anyway, so much to learn about these characters. Some of these constellations are super ancient. Some of them will be kind of new. I'm always interested in that. As we were reading from one of the sources before, like look at the historical happenings when stars of a constellation process into a new or into a different tropical sign, like what happens on Earth at the time. Shouldn't that say something about what the star could mean? All right, well, I want to not get lost here, but cool. So basically in Stellarium, it's just helpful for me because I can see these things. I'm still wondering about like this star of Hydra. Is that Mu Hydra? And then down into the ANT, I think that's a plum bomb, plum bob. There's also stars from the sails Suhail of Argo, though they live so far south, southern hemisphere constellations that are also aligned by longitude to where Venus was when I was born. Will that help me learn more about Venus? Well, as I said before, I was recently learning about Mizar and Alcor, and just reading about Kritika. And I wonder if that story shows up here. I'm gonna search Kritika. Nope. I searched wife to see if they had that story about the wife of one of the rishis, but instead we hear something about Juno. Oh, just about Ursa Major in general being turned to a bear, either by Juno or by Jupiter to protect her. And then the wonderful story of Arctis and Arcturus and all that. So kind of staying in the Greco-Roman side here anyway. We get Elspeth Ebertine here. Mizar portends a Mars nature. If it is in maximal position in the mundane map, is that of being connected with fires of a catastrophic event and mass calamities. Sweet. In personal charts, Mizar is not helpful if conjunct with bad planets. It is not wrong to assume that, besides these handicaps, artistic emanations can also be attributed to Mizar. Okay. Presages the death of a loved one, from George Noonan in Fixed Stars and Judicial Astrology. I should have given that caveat up front here as the warning that The fixed stars, especially in a sea of difficult transmissions from ancient and less ancient astrologers, the star stuff can just be really heavy. I received a printout from a star teacher about natal chart alignments long ago. I'm not going to mention her name, but it really put me off because, yeah, it has me afraid of the last years of my life. And, there's things I say in client sessions that I'm sure I wish I could take back and I'm sure are heard by clients in ways that I'm not trying to transmit them, but to put that on like a printed thing, when you're not even there speaking with someone and given the opportunity to respond or ask questions about it, pretty rough. Anyway, star work sometimes is like that. That was a connection, by the way, with the star Algol. Cool. Look, in China, it was Fuxing, a supporting star. Hindu mythology, the seven stars of Ursa Major, the seven rishis, or seven wise men, were wedded to the seven sisters of the Pleiades. After rumors of their infidelity, the rishis banished their wives only. Arundhata, or Arunda, an exemplary wife, remained with her husband. Sage Vashishta as the star Alcor. So Vashishta is Mysore, and now Arunda, who's one of the Pleiades, is now here as Alcor. Cool. Anyway, we do with these stories what we will. For me, that's going to give me some opportunity to meditate on Virgo Venus in times of my life of faith and perhaps times back in the day of not faith and doing some spiritual work around that. All right. So one last thing I just want to show you here. Again, stars with special meanings we looked at, but I think that's pretty cool. Like we were just talking marriage. So what about marriage and domestic conditions? Porrima, Bellatrix, which is Porrima's in the waist of the priestess. Bellatrix, a shoulder of Orion. And you can see here the constellational connections as well, right? Often single. Oh, I see. Rarely marries. Usually unmarried. Often lives alone, but if married, danger or separation or divorce. 2 or more marriages, several unhappy marriages, love disappointments, but marries above own station. Some domestic disharmony or separation. I mean, any of these just gonna be like awesome? Like you married your high school sweetheart and it was the best thing that ever happened for you. No, because it's stars and it's astrologers. Favorable for marriage, and you get a lot of get married later in life. What surprises me about Nunki? Geez. There's some just some rough transmissions here, right? Okay, wait. Favorable for marriage. You get a bunch of them. Aldebaran. Hey, it's my rising star. Well, I guess this is if it's connected with the moon, favorable for marriage. I wanted to go there and read about that. Venus with Aldebaran. So, yeah, I mean, given that we have 2 different planets listed with the same star, I think it's probably safe to assume that what they're saying is if Uranus is with Ascellus Borealis, then favorable for marriage. That's a strange one to me, the northern ass star it is in the Crab constellation, but why Uranus favorable for anything connection? Rather than electric and weird and sometimes traumatic separation is surprising to me. Neptune and Betelgeuse. All right. So obviously the Uranus and Neptune translations or transmissions are not going to come from the ancient days, right? That's going to be for Uranus 1781 or later. I'm guessing that's probably coming from cosmobiology, Uranian astrology. We actually heard from one of those authors just a little bit earlier in this trip. All right. Favorable for marriage if male, but less so if female. Tanaya. Intriguing. All right. All right, so the last thing I want to show you is just this wonderful search bar here. So if you, like me, are kind of tuning into the Pleiades right now, we can, if you know how to spell Pleiades, just type that in right there. And then, we can get this general article on the Pleiades, which is going to have tons of information because there has been so much written about the Pleiades over time and so many sources. I mean, look at this. Probably the longest article here. I'm sure there's others that compete, but the Pleiades might be the most written about and studied and adored, and also in astrology, one of the most feared star groups, intriguingly. The Fixed Stars in Mundane Astrology from Vivian E. Robeson. Generally a pretty tricky read. I'll just warn you once again. But cool that this is available here. I mean, thanks again to Anne Rice. I just applaud you for making such an amazing resource available to we star students. Deep bow. Introduction to the Fixed Stars in Natal Astrology, the Lunar Mansions. An excerpt from Star Names or Lore and Meaning by Richard H. Allen. Now, when we read that, that might take us to Nakshatra lunar mansion traditions from India. It might be the medieval lunar mansions, Chinese lunar mansions. Looks like we actually have mention of Arabia, China, and India. Something about Coptic Egypt and Persia, right? This is a pretty amazing article that actually I have read. The Hyades, the sisters of the seven sisters. Tejeta and Sheraton, that's interesting to me. This is a star of the Ram. I'm wondering how that connects in with the Pleiades. But once I'm there, I can search Pleiades, right? Oh, looks like another one of these stories of Kritika. I want to read that actually. Beta, Sheraton, and Gamma. So these are stars, Mesartim, of the Ram constellation, constituted the 27th nakshatra, Ashvini. The two horsemen corresponding to the Gemini of Rome, but figured as a horse's head, sometimes was added to this lunar station. But Beta, this star Sheraton, always was the junction star with the adjoining Bharani. And about 400 years before our era, this superseded Kritika as leader of the nakshatras. They were the Persian. Okay. So basically just some kind of nakshatra history. In the Vedas, Kritika, the Pleiades, is the first nakshatra, but typically astrologers today who are utilizing that system of Jyotisha are beginning the list of the 27 lunar mansions or nakshatras with a different mansion. Yeah, so that's how the Pleiades come into this article. Cool. All right, well, it's like that over here. Basically, I would only advise heading to constellationsofwords.com unless you've got a day or two to spend. And I'm seeing actually that I am now late for a reading. Bye. Oops.